Hello and welcome to another episode of Soundcheck by Support Act. This is Luke from Support Act, and today I am joined by Jaguar Jones, aka Dina Lynch. Thanks for joining us, Dina.
Hi.
If you are experiencing mental health or other wellbeing issues at the moment and you need to talk, make sure you call the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline on 1-800-959-500. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week service for people who work within the music industry, whether you're an artist, crew worker, or a music worker, to call up and speak about what might be going on in your life. So thanks for joining us, Dina.
No, thanks for having me.
And congratulations on your debut EP, Diamonds and Liquid Gold.
Thank you. It seems so weird.
How's it all going?
Yeah, great. Obviously I didn't plan to put it out in this weird time of the world, but it's also something I've been working on for so long that I didn't want to put it out either.
Absolutely. And, there's a bit of an argument both ways. Some people saying now's not the time to release anything, but also people are consuming stuff more than they probably ever are. So perhaps there's an argument to say that now's a good time to release.
Yeah. We're definitely, even though the music industry or the arts industry has been decimated in this time, it's the time when people seek entertainment as well. And so I think, streaming music or streaming Netflix and whatnot is a necessary means of connection for people in this time.
Absolutely. Well, here's hoping that it ends up like Tiger King and captures the zeitgeist of the day.
Definitely not going to happen.
Tiger King, Diamonds and Liquid Gold, side by side.
Queen.
So what was, before we delve into talking about your experiences with COVID-19, maybe we talk a little bit about the EP and kind of some of the songwriting themes behind it and how it's all come together.
I think this EP for me has been a bit of a journal. I write quite personally, and so the EP and its songs really revolve around mental health and self-discovery, and I guess just events and certain things that happened throughout my life in that period.
In the pre lockdown world that we used to live in. Okay, cool. That's great to hear. Maybe we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the record after this. But first question today is, where were you when you first heard about COVID-19?
I was in Taiwan in January, and there was just talks, a little bit of rumors about a pneumonia thing in China, but we didn't really hear about it. I guess things started picking up just before I left for the US and while I was in Australia, but it didn't seem so, it wasn't a pandemic at that time. It wasn't even an epidemic at that time. And then we embarked on our first US tour, and literally within hour by hour, it changed so dramatically, from epidemic to pandemic to things locking down and flights being cancelled and tours cancelled and restaurants only doing takeaways and curfews. It was just things just rolled, really.
Wow. It was a wow moment.
Yeah.
So how did you feel? Had you completed your US tour when it was time for you to head back?
No, we had South by Southwest on the list, and we had about 14 shows on top of that. And we were only able to do the 3 shows in New York. So we only got to New York, didn't get to hit any other cities, and we turned back around and went home.
Yeah, okay, right. I know through these discussions and just chatting with people in the industry generally that, obviously we're dealing with the other kind of well-being impacts or health impacts of being in isolation now, but that first feeling, I can identify as well. I had a single launch cancelled in that week. That first feeling of kind of, grief, because you've got all of this great work laid out ahead of you and all of a sudden it's gone. How did that feel?
Grief was a great way to put it, because that US tour was completely an investment tour on my end. And that was years of hard work and my own personal finances that I poured in just kind of, sticking my neck out and hopefully being able to launch my music career in a different territory. and to have that kind of thrown back at you in your face, and then come home and have your security of means for the next 4 months be taken away from you as well. All of that was just like, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was definitely a grief that came with that. But I try to look on the bright side. Even though we had a failed US tour, I actually feel that it was a lot more successful than I give it credit for, because a lot of conversations still happened over there. And I've been able, with the amazing use of technology, to have the meetings I was supposed to have over there, but in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah. So I'm sure your brain, after all of those cancellations took place, was pivoting to what next, but something else intervened in the meantime, which is pretty well documented now. But you were unwell and tested positive for COVID-19. How did that feel?
It was fine at the start. Like, it just, I guess, felt like a common cold. But I guess it definitely was a whack. I mean, you're already so grief stricken from the world that you've spent so long building crumbling around you. And then this virus hits you and becomes this huge slice of uncertainty and illness as well, that I just have been coping with for 40 days. So I was only discharged yesterday. And so
Wow.
I've been in strict quarantine for 40 days, and, checking in with the nurses twice a day, and going to release my EP in an ambulance in the hospital. So it was very weird, but I like to try and keep a positive outlook. And I'm really grateful that we have a really great healthcare. I'm in a lot better position than a lot of other people who, might have needed ventilators and to be hospitalized the entire time. So obviously it's a blow, and being unwell and contained for so long by yourself takes its toll as well, just on your emotional capacity in your brain as well. And then dealing with how you're going to survive as an individual. It was very hard to just kind of balance it all together, but figuring it out, one step at a time.
Yeah, that's it. So like day to day, I mean, obviously you would have felt crook, but you've got like this career stuff, which is all happening, which I guess you were still trying to drive, maybe once you started to feel better. But what did your day to day look like? Because obviously you're trying to work through your kind of mental well-being at the same time. For a lot of people who are in lockdown at the moment, that's some of the major issues that people are having, is like, how do you keep yourself up and active whilst in isolation? What are some of the tips you picked up in your 40 days of isolation?
Well, I wasn't allowed to even go for a walk. So like, even when you're in social distancing or self-isolation, you have the freedom to exercise and to go to the shops and be independent and look after yourself. I had all of that taken away, and for 6 weeks. So that was really difficult on my mental well-being. I realized that I definitely need to move my body to expel the extra energy and anxiety that builds up. And I couldn't do that. So I would just start doing weird things like running on the spot, trying to do yoga stretches, take all my phone calls standing and walk up and down, work at my desk standing as well to stay on my feet. But also just being aware of how I'm feeling and allowing myself to spoil myself and do self-care. So it was good in a way, because the virus made me do a full-on forced stop, and I didn't realize that I was probably running on gas, like empty gas, for the end tail there of Jaguar Jones, and I was very much burnt out, and the virus made me recuperate, listen to my body more, and look after myself better.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. You've done some, under a previous pseudonym of Spectator Jones, you've done some great mental health advocacy, particularly using art as a medium of communicating. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, and how some of this experience might feed back into some of that work in the future?
Yeah, so I started Spectator Jones before I did Jaguar Jones. And that was because it was something I needed to do for my own mental health. And Spectator Jones is a people project all about mental health. And I interview each person about their habits, vices, anxieties, demons, obstacles, triumphs, struggles, whatever it is that they're comfortable in sharing. And I guess draw a visual interpretation of what they generously shared with me into a portrait of themselves. And then those portraits are posted with a story or a little snippet of what they're comfortable in sharing. And it's basically just to start a conversation about mental health and the importance of mental health, and that we all have one. We might not all have a mental illness, but we all have a mental health, and we need to be tuned in with that, because suppressing and repressing and hiding from it is a lot more detrimental to your health.
Yeah, and in terms of your own mental health and your own mental health journey, do you feel like this experience has brought anything up for you, or do you feel like you've done the prior work to build the resilience to cope with a situation like this?
I definitely think it was therapeutic for me, and it showed the power of community and connectedness and honesty. And so when people were sharing with me, it would open this little door in me and force me to explore a new territory that I might be uncomfortable with, because if they're giving to me, I can't just take it from them. I have to give back. And so it becomes this like snowballing process of everyone sharing and supporting each other, that soon you realize that your territory is a lot more broad than when you first started off with. And that's what would happen for me. When I first started drawing my self-portraits, it was so obscure. You had no idea what I was even trying to express. And now it kind of becomes this brain vomit. And there's definitely still compartmentalized parts of my mind that I'm still yet to explore. But I have more of a strength and resilience about me because of the whole Spectator Jones journey and the art that came with it.
Oh, major positives then. That's great. So a lot of people feel the stress at the moment as an artist. Let's just focus on the artist for a second here. To be creative and be like using this time as a pause on everything else to get out there and create their magnus opus, you know, like their big piece. You know, what's your advice, and what are you doing? Are you putting that creative pressure on yourself?
No, I'm not, because that can be the very block that you might feel with creativity. I'm definitely creating a lot, but it's in ways that I wouldn't expect to have created. And so when I was bedridden sick and everyone was, you know, starting to retreat back into their isolations, I realized that people were hungry for creativity, and so was I. But I wasn't well enough to record music or make music or do my Spectator Jones interviews and draw portraits. So what I ended up creating each week, and I'm on my 5th week now, are coloring books for every song on my EP that I've invited other artists to contribute to each week to just showcase everyone's beautiful works. And it's been this awesome transaction of everyone's different interpretations of a similar thing. And that was something that I would have never created outside of Corona. And so that, I guess, sparks the creativity in me because there's no pressure. And there's been a lot of things like that. I've been dabbling with AR stuff just cause, and writing music that normally isn't my like style just cause. And I think the important part is that you're creating, but to eliminate the pressure and expectations you have on yourself on what you will create, because that will be a block to you.
Yeah, I mean, we all lead pretty busy lifestyles usually. I mean, has this whole time given you a new perspective on time and how to use it and when to not use it and just relax?
Definitely. I think it's forced myself to realize that I'm not as busy as I am, like that I thought I was, because there was even little joys like learning to cook for myself again, and taking that time to cook for yourself. I always thought I didn't have time for that, and I'd always order takeaway. But the beauty of eating home cooking is a lot more therapeutic and necessary, just like a means to stop and just meditate and make food for yourself has been so good. And even just like stopping to watch a movie sometimes, I never allowed myself the time to watch TV shows or movies, and I realized that's okay sometimes, you know, as well. Um, yeah, I've become, I've spent the last few years growing self-awareness about my mental health, but this coronavirus time has allowed me to tune in with my physical health a lot better too.
Yeah, wonderful. So what are you looking forward to in the post-lockdown world and to getting back into, or maybe it's something new that you want to try after all this?
Um, I've been in a really creative rut, which is great, and in ways that is not normal, which is great again because I think the allure of Jaguar Jones is that it's multidisciplinary art as well, and to do that you need to constantly innovate and try new things, and this time has allowed me to do that. So I'm gonna dive in and give it a hot well and see where like maybe EP2 will go. So I'm excited for that. But really, I just want to get back into exercising. I went for my first walk after being discharged last night, and
Must have felt amazing.
my eyes have never looked at trees for a long time. Like they were hurting so much because I was just like, I can't look at trees. Like it hurts. I think, yeah, it was, I felt like a child really because I was like, grass, cloud,
Oh, great.
you know, it was great. It was a new perspective to life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, just going back to the previous question, like in terms of things that I've been getting back in touch with, like cooking again. I went through a period there. I've always fancied myself as a good cook, and then for the last couple of years, I think I just went off it, and I was like, I am so sick of cooking. And then this has just made me go, okay, well, I've got the time to cook again and try to, focus myself on cooking, which I didn't think would ever come back. And then to go to what you just said about getting outside, like I'm not usually someone who loves going to the gym, but that's the one thing that I'm absolutely craving at the end of this. I'm really excited about going back to a gym after all this and doing some exercise, because there's only so much time you can spend gardening in your own backyard before
Yeah.
like I need to go out and do something. All right, cool. So now that you've released the EP, what's next? Like now that you're out of lockdown as well, like what's next on the agenda for Jaguar Jones?
Well, it only just happened, but I guess I'm going to get back onto the performing wagon. I skipped out on that for while I was sick. So I only just did my first live stream performance last weekend for Vice Australia, and it made me realize how much I missed playing and singing. So hopefully I can build my endurance up again and do it the next following weeks. I only sang 4 songs for Vice Australia and it wrecked me because I've been so unwell. So I hope to just build the stamina again and write more, record more, get cracking onto future releases and just keep creating as well.
Beautiful. Well, that sounds like you got a lot coming up. Thank you so much, Dina, aka Jaguar Jones. It's been a pleasure to have on. And for anyone who's tuned in and gotten all the way through to the end, if you're in need of support, make sure you contact the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline on 1-800-959-500. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week service for people who work in the music industry. So we encourage you to give them a call if you're going through a tough time. Thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Luke. Bye.
Bye.